2020 was defined by the pandemic. So many of the important dates now seared in our memories. But the COVID nightmare didn't begin in 2020. It was a year ago today, in 2019, that doctors in China were watching a strange new illness and realizing something bad was happening. None of us could have imagined what that illness would do to us, how it would change our world. And even with vaccines now bringing hope, the changes keep coming. Today, the federal government announced a new rule for anyone from anywhere flying into Canada. So whether you are outside the country planning to come home or inside planning to leave, consider this an early warning. Very soon, you will need a negative COVID test to get back into Canada. David Thurton with what we know of the plan so far and what we don't.
Join us on our journey to the Royalton Riviera, Cancun.
Even with all the pandemic restrictions, sunny destinations are still tempting for Canadians. But today, the federal government got tough with travelers, bringing in tough new measures.
So somebody who's decided to go spend Christmas on a beach in the Caribbean, they've already decided to ignore the clear advice of public health authorities, federal and provincial, for many months. And now they will be required to procure the negative COVID test themselves.
Details today were scarce, but the government outlined one requirement, a negative PCR test, the so-called gold standard within 3 days of flying home. The rule could be enforced as early as next week.
I get a test every time I go away anywhere, so I make sure I'm safe. I'm just one of those OCD people.
Well, I'm from Barbados, and it's common knowledge to get the test before, like 72 hours before arriving.
The government says while the risk of imported COVID infections remains low, the measure is still needed.
We've determined that approximately 2% of all known COVID cases in Canada have originated from travel outside the country. 2% is very low, but it's still unacceptable.
Canada's two biggest provinces, Ontario and Quebec, which today both broke daily case count records, have been pushing the government to act. And while the provinces are happy, the airlines are not. An industry source speaking to CBC News on the condition of confidentiality says they were blindsided and weren't given notice about today's announcement ahead of time, adding the government hasn't really studied how easy it will be for Canadians to get a test abroad and what the rules will be around denying boarding. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.